Part 1, the warning lights flashed red across the control panel. Doyen stared at the screen, his coffee growing cold in his hand. 3 distress signals, all coming from the same coordinates in the debris field ahead. He should ignore them. Every rational part of his brain told him to change course and keep flying. The Frontier Nebula was dangerous territory. Ships disappeared here all the time. Whatever caused those signals probably killed everyone already. But Doyen could not make his hands turn the ship away. His freighter, the Wanderer, moved slowly through the scattered metal and frozen debris. Pieces of a destroyed ship floated past his windows. Big pieces. The kind that meant the ship had been torn apart by weapons, not an accident. The distress signals grew stronger. Doyen checked his scanners again. No life signs. No power signatures. Just automated emergency beacons screaming into the void. Then he saw it. An escape pod, barely intact, wedged between 2 large sections of hull. The beacon was coming from inside. Doyen brought his ship alongside the pod. His mechanical arm extended, grabbed the small vessel and pulled it into his cargo bay. He sealed the bay doors and waited for the atmosphere to stabilize before going down. The escape pod was marked with symbols he recognized. Vorkathi. His stomach tightened. The Vorkathi were apex predators. Their adults stood over 2 meters tall with claws that could cut through steel. They had killed humans before. Lots of humans. Doyen pulled his plasma pistol from its holster and approached the pod carefully. The door was damaged but not sealed. He could pry it open. He counted to 3 and yanked the door open, weapon ready. 2 pairs of eyes stared back at him. 4 eyes total. Young eyes. Terrified eyes, cubs. 2 Vorkathi cubs huddled together in the back of the pod. They could not be more than a few years old in their development. Their scales were still soft, not yet hardened into armor. Their claws were tiny, barely visible. One of them was bleeding. Dark blood seeped from a wound on its side. The other cub pressed against it, making small whimpering sounds. Doyen lowered his weapon. His hands shook slightly. Leave them. The thought came clearly. They are Vorkathi. They will grow up to be killers. They are not your problem. Leave them and go, but they were so small, so scared. The wounded one tried to growl at him, a tiny sound that broke halfway through, protecting its sibling even while dying. Doyen holstered his weapon and stepped into the pod. Both cubs pressed back against the wall. The healthy one positioned itself in front of the wounded one, trying to be brave, trying to be the protector. Doyen moved slowly. He kept his hands visible, his movements calm. He had been a soldier once. He knew how to approach frightened things. The wounded cub was losing too much blood. It would die in the next hour if he did nothing. He reached for his emergency medical kit and pulled out a coagulant spray. The cubs watched every movement. When he extended his hand toward the wounded one, the healthy cub snapped at him with those tiny jaws. Doyen did not pull back. He let the cub bite his glove, let it feel like it had some control. Then, while it was distracted, he sprayed the coagulant on the wound. The wounded cub squealed. The healthy one released his glove and turned to its sibling, making soft clicking sounds. Comfort sounds, Doyen realized. They were comforting each other. The bleeding stopped. Doyen wrapped the wound with sterile bandages, working as quickly as he dared. The cubs did not attack again. They watched him with those 4 eyes, trying to understand what he was doing. When he finished, he sat back and pulled out a ration bar. The cubs tensed. He broke the bar in half and tossed the pieces toward them. They did not eat immediately. They sniffed the food, looked at each other, looked at him, testing, waiting for the trap. Finally, hunger won. The healthy cub grabbed one piece and pushed it toward the wounded one. Only after its sibling started eating did it take the other piece for itself. Doyen felt something twist in his chest. That gesture, that pure, simple act of putting another before yourself. He had done the same thing for his own children years ago. Before the raid, before he lost everything, his communicator beeped. A proximity alert. He checked the reading and felt his blood turn cold. Ships, 3 of them, Vorkathi warships according to the signatures. They were coming fast, heading straight for this debris field. They were hunting, and Doyen suddenly understood what they were hunting for. He looked at the cubs. They had finished eating and were huddled together again, the wounded one leaning on its sibling. Leave them. Take them back to the pod. Seal it. Let the warships find them. You can escape. You can survive. They are not your responsibility. The smaller cub looked up at him, those 4 eyes still scared but also hopeful, looking at him like he might be safety. Like he might be protection, like he might be family. Doyen made his choice. He scooped up both cubs, one in each arm. They were heavier than he expected, dense with muscle even this young. They struggled for a moment, then went still, confused by being carried. He brought them to his living quarters and set them down in the corner. He grabbed blankets, food, water, everything he could think of. The cubs watched him rush around, their heads turning to follow his movements. Then Doyen ran to the bridge and started the engines. The wanderer shuddered to life. He plotted a course away from the debris field, away from the incoming warships, away from any rational decision he should have made. The warships appeared on his sensors. They were scanning the debris field, searching methodically. In minutes, they would find his ship. Doyen engaged the jump drive. The ship groaned. Space twisted. The wanderer leaped forward, vanishing from the debris field in a flash of light. When the jump finished, Doyen sat back in his chair. His hands were still shaking. He had just stolen 2 Vorkathi cubs. He had just made himself a target for one of the most dangerous species in the galaxy. He heard sounds from the living quarters. Soft clicking. The cubs were calling to each other, making sure they were both still there. Doyen stood and walked back to check on them. They had found the blankets and dragged them into a pile. They were curled together in the center, creating a small nest. When he entered, they looked up at him. No fear this time, just watchful curiosity. Doyen sat down against the wall, giving them space. He would need to figure out what they ate, how to care for them, how to keep them safe, how to explain to the entire galaxy why a human had decided to protect 2 predator cubs that could one day kill him. But as he watched them settle into sleep, their small bodies finally relaxing after whatever horror they had survived, Doyen knew he had made the only choice he could. He was a human, and humans could not leave children behind. Not even alien children, not even predator children. It was just how they were made. Part 2, the first 3 days were hell. The cubs would not eat the food Doyen offered. They hissed when he came too close. They destroyed the blankets he gave them, shredding the fabric with their small claws. At night, they made sounds that cut through the ship's walls. Grief sounds, lost sounds, calling for parents who would never answer. Doyen spent hours searching the ship's database for information about Vorkathi cubs. Most of what he found was not helpful. The files talked about their biology, their growth rates, their eventual size and strength. But nothing about how to care for them, nothing about what they needed to feel safe. On the 4th day, the smaller cub stopped moving. It lay in the corner, eyes half closed, breathing too fast. The wound on its side had become infected despite Doyen's treatment. Doyen knew he had to do something. He gathered medical supplies and approached slowly. The larger cub immediately moved between him and its sibling, growling. It was a real growl this time, deeper than before, growing stronger even as its sibling grew weaker. Doyen sat down on the floor and waited. He did not advance. He did not retreat. He just waited, letting them see he meant no harm. After an hour, the larger cub's growl faded. It looked back at its sibling, then at Doyen. In those 4 eyes, he saw something he recognized: desperation, the need for help that pride could not overcome. The cub stepped aside. Doyen moved to the sick cub carefully. The infection was bad, worse than he thought. He would need to clean the wound completely, inject antibiotics, and monitor for the next day and night. He started working. The sick cub tried to struggle, but it was too weak. It made those grief sounds again, high and pitiful. The larger cub pressed close, clicking softly, trying to comfort. Doyen worked through the night. He cleaned the wound 3 times. He gave injections every 4 hours. He brought water and used a cloth to wet the sick cub's mouth when it could not drink on its own. The larger cub watched everything. It did not leave its sibling's side. Sometimes it would look at Doyen with those 4 eyes, studying his movements, learning to trust. By morning, Doyen's hands were covered in scratches. His arms ached. His eyes burned from lack of sleep. But the sick cub's breathing had slowed. The fever had broken. Doyen collapsed against the wall, exhausted. He closed his eyes for just a moment. He woke to something warm pressed against his side. The larger cub had moved next to him, its body heat radiating through his shirt. On his other side, the sick cub had crawled close as well, seeking warmth and safety. They were using him as shelter, as protection, as pack. Something tight in Doyen's chest loosened. He had not felt this in years, not since before he lost his family. The weight of being needed, the responsibility of being trusted. He reached out slowly and touched the larger cub's head. It tensed but did not pull away. Its scales were warm, slightly rough. He could feel the strong muscles underneath, even this young. The cub made a sound. Not a growl. Not a click. Something new. A questioning sound. Without thinking, Doyen responded. A low rumble came from his chest, a sound he did not know he could make. It felt right. It felt like an answer. Both cubs went still. Then they pressed closer to him, their small bodies relaxing completely for the first time since he found them. They slept like that for hours. When they woke, everything had changed. The cubs started eating the food he offered. They followed him around the ship, keeping close but not afraid. When he sat down, they sat nearby. When he worked at the controls, they watched and learned. Doyen gave them names. The larger cub became Shrike after a bird from Earth that was small but fierce. The smaller cub became Talon, for the claws it would one day grow into. He said the names often, pointing to each cub. After 2 days, Shrike's ears would perk up when Doyen said its name. After 4 days, Talon responded as well. They learned quickly. Too quickly. Doyen would show them something once, and they understood. How to use the water dispenser. How to open the food storage. How to stay quiet when the ship made loud noises during jumps, but they also played. They chased each other through the corridors. They pounced on loose cables. They tried to hunt the cleaning robot until Doyen had to separate them. Sometimes Doyen would watch them play and forget they were supposed to be dangerous. They were just children. Curious, energetic, affectionate children who happened to have claws and 4 eyes. On the 7th day, his communicator received an encrypted message. Doyen read it 3 times, his stomach sinking. The message was from the Galactic Authority. They knew about the cubs. They knew he had them. They ordered him to surrender the cubs immediately at the nearest station or face charges. Doyen deleted the message. Another message came an hour later. This one was more aggressive. The Vorkathi were hunting for their cubs. They had issued formal demands. They had threatened military action if the cubs were not returned. Doyen deleted that message too. He looked at Shrike and Talon. They were sleeping in their corner, tangled together in a pile of blankets. Talon's wound had healed completely. Both cubs were gaining weight, growing stronger each day. They trusted him now. They looked to him for food, for safety, for comfort. They were his pack and he was theirs. No one was taking them away. Not the Authority. Not the Vorkathi. No one, but he needed help. He could not care for them alone, not long term. He needed someone who understood alien biology, someone who could teach him what these cubs needed as they grew. He set course for Orbital Research Station Kepler 9. He had contacts there, scientists who studied alien species. One of them might help. One of them might understand, or they might report him immediately and he would lose everything. It was a risk. But Doyen had already crossed too many lines to turn back now. That night both cubs climbed into his bunk. They had never done that before. They pressed against him on either side, their warmth soaking into his skin. Shrike made that questioning sound again. Doyen made the rumbling sound back. He put one arm over Shrike, the other over Talon. Protecting them even in sleep, they fell asleep like that. A human and 2 predator cubs. A family that should not exist. A pack that made no sense to anyone except themselves. And in the quiet of deep space, surrounded by stars and darkness. It was enough. Part 3 Dr. Minji was not what Doyen expected. She was young, maybe mid-20s, with quick eyes that missed nothing. When Doyen brought the cubs into her laboratory on the research station, she did not gasp or step back. She just moved closer, her face full of wonder. Shrike and Talon pressed against Doyen's legs, nervous in the new environment. The laboratory was full of strange smells and sounds. Equipment hummed. Screens flickered. Other aliens moved through the corridors outside. Minji knelt down slowly, making herself smaller, less threatening. She held out her hand, palm up. Waiting. Talon sniffed toward her, curious. Then Shrike did the same. Neither cub moved to touch her, but they did not hide either. Minji looked up at Doyen. Her expression was unreadable. "They have bonded to you," she said quietly. "Completely. I have studied Vorkathi behavior for 6 years, and I have never seen this. They do not bond across species. They barely bond within their own packs until they are much older. Will you help them?" Doyen asked. Minji stood. You understand what you have done is illegal? The Vorkathi want these cubs dead. They are from a rival clan. Political targets. And you have painted yourself as an enemy by protecting them. I know. You could die for this. I know. Minji studied his face for a long moment. Then she smiled. Good. Then let us make sure you all survive. She spent the next 2 hours examining the cubs. She was gentle, careful, always explaining what she was doing. Shrike and Talon tolerated her touch because Doyen stayed close, making those rumbling sounds whenever they grew nervous. When she finished, Minji sat down at her desk and pulled up files on her screen. They are healthy, growing fast. You did well caring for them, but they will need special food soon. Their dietary needs will change as they mature. I can help with that. Doyen felt relief wash through him. Someone understood. Someone would help. Then the alarm sounded. Red lights flashed through the laboratory. A recorded voice announced an incoming ship. Unscheduled, unidentified, approaching fast. Minji pulled up the security feed. A massive warship filled the screen. Dark metal. Sharp edges. Weapons bristling from every surface. Vorkathi. They found us, Doyen said. His voice sounded distant to his own ears. Shrike and Talon sensed his fear. They moved closer, pressing against him, trying to offer comfort the way he had comforted them. The communicator crackled. A deep voice filled the room, speaking through translators. This is Warlord Krath of the Vorkathi Empire. We demand the immediate surrender of the stolen cubs. Any who resist will be considered enemies of our people. The station administrator responded, his voice shaking. He said the station was neutral. He said they would comply. He said the cubs would be surrendered within the hour. Doyen looked at Shrike and Talon. They looked back at him with those 4 eyes, trusting and confused. They did not understand what was happening. They only knew he was afraid, and that made them afraid too. Minji touched his arm. There is a medical bay on the lower level. We can barricade it. Buy time while I contact someone who can help. Doyen nodded. They moved quickly through the corridors. Shrike and Talon stayed close, their small claws clicking on the metal floor. Other station personnel stared as they passed, but no one tried to stop them. The medical bay was small but defensible. One entrance. Solid walls. Emergency supplies. Doyen sealed the door and started piling equipment in front of it. Minji worked at the communication panel, sending encrypted messages to contacts across the galaxy. Asking for help. Asking for intervention. Asking for anything that might save them. Then they waited. The sounds came 30 minutes later. Heavy footsteps in the corridor outside. Multiple footsteps. Moving in formation. Doyen pulled the cubs behind him and drew his plasma pistol. The weapon felt pathetically small. He was one human with a handgun facing trained Vorkathi warriors. The door exploded inward. Metal screamed. Equipment scattered. 6 Vorkathi warriors stepped through the smoke. They were massive. Over 2 meters tall. Armored scales gleaming. Claws like knives. 4 eyes locked on Doyen with cold predator focus. Behind Doyen, Shrike and Talon whimpered. They recognized their own kind. They recognized danger. The lead warrior spoke. His voice was deep, confident, amused. Human, give us the cubs. We will make your death quick if you cooperate. Doyen did not move. His pistol stayed pointed at the warrior's center mass. The weapon would not hurt them much. Their scales were too thick. But he aimed anyway. Something happened inside Doyen. A switch flipped. Rational thought disappeared. Logic vanished. All that remained was instinct. Pure, primal, protective instinct. A sound came from his throat. Low. Aggressive. A snarl that belonged to something wild. His lips pulled back. His eyes went flat. Every muscle in his body coiled tight, ready to explode into violence. The warriors stopped. Their advance faltered. They looked at each other, confused. They saw a weak creature, a fragile human with a tiny weapon. But the sound coming from him was wrong. The look in his eyes was wrong. He showed no fear, no self-preservation, only rage, only the absolute certainty that he would kill and die before letting them through. The lead warrior took a step forward. Doyen roared. He fired his pistol and charged. The plasma bolt struck the lead warrior's shoulder, burning through scales. Then Doyen was on him, too close for claws, using his body weight to drive them both into the wall. The fight became chaos. Warriors tried to grab him. He ducked under their arms, struck at joints and eyes, used medical equipment as weapons. A tray of instruments became projectiles. A diagnostic machine became a shield. Claws caught him. Pain exploded across his back. He kept moving. Blood ran down his side. He kept fighting. Then Shrike and Talon joined the fight. They were small, but they were still Vorkathi. They knew where to bite, where to claw. They went for ankles, for the backs of knees, for any vulnerable spot they could reach. The warriors had not expected this. Cubs attacking their own kind, fighting alongside a human, protecting him. The confusion gave Doyen seconds. He used them. He grabbed a medical laser and fired it point blank into a warrior's face. The Vorkathi screamed and stumbled back. Then the door behind them burst open again. Station security flooded in. Weapons fired. The warriors retreated, dragging their wounded with them. Doyen collapsed. His vision blurred. Blood pooled beneath him, but he could see Shrike and Talon. They were safe. Scared, but safe. The cubs pressed against him, making distressed sounds. He tried to make the rumbling sound back to tell them he was okay. But darkness pulled him down. The last thing he felt was their warmth. The last thing he heard was Minji's voice calling for medical help. The last thing he knew was that he had done it. He had protected his pack. Part 4 Doyen woke to steady beeping. Medical equipment. Clean sheets. The smell of antiseptic. He tried to sit up. Pain shot through his back and side. His body felt heavy, sluggish from medication. Then he felt movement. Weight on either side of his bed. He turned his head. Shrike and Talon. They had somehow gotten into his medical bed. They pressed against him, their warmth soaking through the thin blanket. When they saw him wake, they made soft clicking sounds. Relief sounds. Minji appeared in the doorway. You have been unconscious for 2 days. The cubs refused to leave you. We tried to move them. They bit anyone who came close. The Vorkathi? Doyen asked. His voice came out rough. Their warship left. But the fight was recorded. The entire galaxy has seen it now. Minji brought up a screen and turned it toward him. The video showed everything. Doyen standing over the cubs. The snarl on his face. The way he charged 6 warriors without hesitation. The cubs fighting alongside him. The video had been viewed billions of times. Every species across known space had seen it. The comments scrolled endlessly. Shock, horror, admiration, confusion. What are they saying? Doyen asked. Minji sat down. Half of them think you are insane. The other half think you are the bravest being they have ever seen. Everyone wants to understand why you did it. Why a human would fight apex predators to protect their young. Doyen looked at Shrike and Talon. They were watching him with those 4 eyes, waiting to see if he was okay. He touched their heads gently. Because they are kids, he said simply. Minji smiled. That is what I told them. They did not understand. Most species do not have the protective instincts humans have. They care for their own young, yes, but not like this. Not across species. Not at the cost of their own lives. Over the next week, Doyen healed slowly. The cubs never left his side. Nurses complained they made medical care difficult. Doyen did not care. Shrike and Talon needed to know he was safe. He needed to know they were safe. Then the summons came. The Galactic Council wanted to see him. They wanted answers. They wanted to decide what to do about the human who had started an interspecies incident. A human diplomat arrived to escort him. Her name was Ji-won. She was older, with sharp eyes and a careful way of speaking. This is serious, she told him. The Vorkathi are demanding punishment. Other species are calling for new regulations on humans. You have made our position in the galaxy very complicated. I did not mean to, Doyen said. Ji-won studied him. Then she sighed. I know. But we must deal with it anyway. The council meets tomorrow. You will testify. Try not to make things worse. The council chamber was enormous. Representatives from 47 species filled the curved seating. Doyen stood in the center, feeling very small. Shrike and Talon stayed close to his legs, their claws clicking nervously on the polished floor. The council had forbidden him from bringing the cubs. He had refused to come without them. After an hour of argument, they had relented. An insectoid alien stood first. Ambassador Thelvar of the Kryn species. Its translated voice was calm, almost gentle. Captain Doyen, I have studied human behavior for many years. I have seen your species do remarkable things. But this confuses even me. You knew the cubs would grow into apex predators. You knew they could one day kill you. You knew protecting them could start a war. Why did you do it? The chamber went silent. Every alien eye focused on Doyen, waiting for an answer that would make sense. Doyen looked down at Shrike and Talon. They looked back at him, trusting. He thought about his own children lost years ago. He thought about every parent throughout history who stood between their children and danger. He looked back at the council. Because they are kids. What else was I supposed to do? The chamber erupted. Aliens talking over each other. Some angry, some confused, some understanding. A Vorkathi representative stood. Not Warlord Krath, but another warrior, older, scarred. This human has violated our sovereignty. He has stolen cubs marked for death by our laws. He has injured our warriors. He must be punished, Ambassador Thelvar responded. Yet he did not steal them for profit. He did not harm them. He cared for them, bonded with them, protected them at risk of his own life. Is this not what we claim to value? The protection of young? Another alien spoke. A reptilian being from a species Doyen did not recognize. The human shows a dangerous pattern. We have reports of other humans forming bonds with alien young, adopting them, protecting them. This could destabilize our societies, Jiwan stood, or it could strengthen them. My people have a saying, it takes a village to raise a child. Perhaps humans are simply expanding that village to include the entire galaxy. The debate raged for hours. Doyen stood through all of it, growing tired. Shrike and Talon pressed closer, sensing his exhaustion. Finally, Ambassador Thelvar called for order. We cannot punish compassion, the ambassador said. Whatever else Captain Doyen has done, he acted to save lives, to protect the vulnerable. If we punish this, what does that say about us? The vote was close, but when it finished, Doyen was free. No charges, no punishment. The cubs could stay with him, but the council added new protocols. Humans who wanted to adopt alien young would need approval. Documentation, oversight. It was not perfect, but it was a start. After the hearing, Ambassador Thelvar approached Doyen privately. You have changed something today, the ambassador said. The galaxy sees humans differently now, not as warriors or scientists or traitors, but as guardians, as beings who will protect children regardless of species. Some find this frightening, but some find it beautiful. Doyen did not know what to say to that. He just looked at Shrike and Talon, who had fallen asleep leaning against his legs. Minji found him later. She had news. Other humans have come forward. Dozens of them. All across the galaxy. They have alien young they are caring for. Species we never thought could bond with humans. They saw what you did and they felt brave enough to show themselves. What happens to them? Doyen asked. We are creating sanctuary colonies. Safe places where interspecies families can live without fear. Would you go to one? Doyen looked at his pack. His strange, impossible pack. Yes, he said. Yes, we would. For the first time in years, Doyen felt hope. Not just for himself, but for all the lost children in the galaxy who might finally find homes. Part 5, 6 months later, Doyen stood on the porch of his new home and watched the sunrise. The sanctuary colony was beautiful. Rolling hills, clear streams, air that smelled clean and fresh. The colony had been built to accommodate many different species. Temperature zones, atmosphere variations, everything needed to make lost children feel safe. Behind him, he heard movement. Shrike and Talon were waking up. They were so much bigger now, already reaching his waist. Their scales had hardened. Their claws had grown sharp. They were becoming what they were meant to be, predators, but they were still his pack. Shrike bounded out onto the porch and pressed against his side. The cub was too big for that now, nearly knocking him over. Talon followed more carefully, always the cautious one. Doyen scratched behind their ears. They made happy rumbling sounds, the same sounds he had made for them when they were small and scared. A transport ship descended from the sky, heading for the landing pad at the colony center. Another arrival. More humans bringing more alien children to safety. The colony had grown quickly, 24 families now. Humans paired with cubs and younglings from a dozen different species. Some were orphans like Shrike and Talon. Some had been abandoned. Some had been rescued from dangerous situations. All of them had found humans willing to protect them, willing to die for them. Minji arrived an hour later. She visited regularly now, studying the interspecies bonds, documenting everything. She had become the leading expert on human protective instincts. Universities across the galaxy wanted her research. How are they today? She asked, kneeling to examine Shrike and Talon. Growing fast, Doyen said. Too fast, Minji smiled. She had that look she got sometimes when she watched him with the cubs. Soft, warm, something more than professional interest. Doyen had noticed. He did not know what to do about it yet. The new arrivals brought 3 Kryn larvae, Minji said. They need special environmental controls. I will help them set up. But I wanted to check on you first. We are good, Doyen said. Better than good. It was true. For the first time since losing his family, Doyen felt whole. The grief was still there. It always would be. But now there was also joy, purpose, family. In the afternoon, Shrike and Talon went to the training grounds with other young Vorkathi. 5 more cubs had arrived over the past months. Their human families brought them together to learn hunting techniques, to practice their natural instincts in safe ways. Doyen watched Shrike demonstrate a stalking pattern to the younger cubs. Patient, teaching, the way an older sibling would. A shadow fell across the training ground. Doyen looked up and felt his blood turn cold. A Vorkathi warship hung in the sky. Massive, dark, armed, all the humans tensed. They moved toward their children instinctively, ready to protect, ready to fight. A shuttle descended from the warship. It landed in the colony center. One figure emerged, Warlord Krath. He came alone. No warriors, no weapons visible. He walked toward the training ground where Doyen stood with the cubs. Shrike and Talon moved to flank Doyen. They were big enough now to fight. Young but dangerous, they growled low in their throats. Krath stopped 10 meters away. His 4 eyes studied the scene. The humans standing with cubs. The other families gathered close. The defensive postures, the absolute refusal to back down. Then the warlord did something unexpected. He lowered himself to one knee, a Vorkathi sign of respect, a gesture usually reserved for pack leaders. Human Doyen, Krath said. His translator made the words formal, careful. I came to see what you have built here. To finish what you started? Doyen asked. His hand rested on Shrike's head. Ready? No. Krath stood. To understand. In the medical bay, I saw something I could not explain. A weak creature willing to die for young that were not his blood. I thought it was madness. He gestured to the training ground, to Shrike and Talon, to the other cubs learning and playing and growing. But now I see. These cubs are healthy, strong, well-trained. You have raised them as Vorkathi should be raised. Better, perhaps. They know loyalty. They know protection. They understand pack. Krath looked directly at Doyen. My species values strength. We respect warriors, but we have no word for what you are. You stood against 6 of my best fighters with nothing but a small weapon and rage. You should have died. You chose to die. That is not weakness. That is something else. We call it being a parent, Doyen said quietly. Krath was silent for a long moment. Then he performed another gesture. A complex movement with his clawed hands. Doyen's translator struggled with it. I acknowledge you as pack leader to these cubs, Krath said. They are under my protection as well now. No Vorkathi will harm them or you. You have my word as warlord. He turned to leave, then paused. There are more cubs in Vorkathi space, orphans from conflicts. They face death or abandonment. Would you take them? Doyen looked at Shrike and Talon. They looked back at him, waiting to see what he would decide. Waiting to follow his lead. Send them, Doyen said. We will take care of them. Krath's expression was unreadable behind his warrior's face. But something in his eyes changed. Softened, perhaps. You are a strange species, humans. Weak bodies. Short lives. But hearts that can hold the whole galaxy. We will remember this. The warlord returned to his shuttle and departed. His warship vanished into the sky. The humans stood together, processing what had happened. Then slowly they relaxed. Children of many species resumed playing. The danger had passed. That evening, Doyen sat on his porch again. Shrike and Talon rested beside him, tired from training. Minji sat on his other side, her shoulder touching his. More ships appeared in the sky. Transports bringing the Vorkathi orphans Krath had promised. And others. Word was spreading. The galaxy knew now. Humans would take in lost children. Any species. Any circumstance, it will never stop now, Minji said softly. Every orphan in the galaxy will find their way here. To humans who cannot turn away. Good, Doyun said. He watched the transports land, watched humans go to meet them, watched new families form before his eyes. A small Kryn larva waddled up to the porch, chirping curiously. Lost. Looking for someone to follow. Doyun reached down and picked it up. The larva settled in his arms immediately. Shrike and Talon moved close, sniffing the new arrival, accepting it into their pack without question. Minji smiled. She rested her head on his shoulder, and Doyun understood. This was humanity's role in the galaxy, not conquerors, not explorers, not even scientists or warriors, guardians, protectors, the ones who would adopt anyone's children and raise them with fierce, unconditional love. In the distance, more ships approached. Always more. The lost and abandoned from across the stars, all seeking the one thing humans gave freely. A home, a family, a pack. Doyun looked at his strange collection of children, different species, different worlds, united by one human who could not walk away. He made the rumbling sound in his chest, the sound that meant safety. That meant family. That meant home. All the children responded. Clicks and chirps and growls, a chorus of different voices saying the same thing. We are pack. We are family. We are home. And in the growing darkness, surrounded by stars and the sounds of children playing, Doyun knew that this was exactly where he was meant to be. This was what humans were meant to do. To love fiercely, to protect unconditionally, to build families from the broken pieces of the galaxy, and make them whole again.